Hi, welcome to Awaken and Align, my dear soul sister friend.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to talk to you and see you like in the moment because I found your video on TikTok, our favorite app,
Yeah.
in August. And I just started following your content and you just light up my feed. And so thank you so much for being here and taking the time to talk to us.
I'm so excited. This is my first. So,
Yay.
I'm excited.
Yay. So I want to start from wherever you feel comfortable, like your origin story. Where are you from? And you can take it as far back as you want. And how did you become a beauty influencer?
So where am I from? My family history, we're from Andong in South Korea and was raised mainly in the US. All my family is still in Korea, except for my mom.
Mhm.
But she raised us as a single mom, and seeing her work so incredibly hard here really made my drive stronger as an adult. So I was a single mom too, really young. And I chose to stay a single mom up until I met my husband, only because I saw my mom struggle and her every time she like relied on a man, it like brought her down.
Mhm.
So I decided even if I get pregnant, it doesn't matter. I can still do it on my own. And that's what I chose to do with my two kids until I met my husband now. And I also helped my mother stopped working in my early 20s, and I just started taking care of her, and my our youngest brother.
Oh.
Um, and during that time, a lot of people do and don't know. I kind of hint and talk about it here and there, but I was a dancer at a club for 8 years.
Oh, that's
And
right. That's right.
yeah, yeah. And that's how I made ends meet, especially with not being able to go to college. And just, I had a cosmetology license,
Mhm.
but it wasn't paying enough.
Mhm.
Even when I worked at a really nice salon and was making really good money. Being early 20s and taking care of four other people was a lot, and taking on all my mother's bills as well. So yeah, I just made some sacrifices in my early 20s, and I met my husband during the pandemic, and it's
Hey.
like a whole new thing. It was like my renaissance. A
Mhm.
whole new life blossomed for me because meeting him woke up a lot in who I am and what I wanted to do. And during the pandemic too, clubs shut down. So it really forced me to sit and think about what I wanted to do. I had worked hard enough to save enough money that I didn't have to continue working there, but I had done it just out of like, it was like all I knew, you
Mhm.
know? So whenever like that cycle kind of just ended, I was forced to sit and think about what I really wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do since I was a kid was like model. And
Mhm.
I always just wanted to do something like that because I just never saw representation like myself out there. Um, and so I took that time and worked on building a portfolio, and really shortly after got signed in New York, and really grew from there. And becoming an influencer was kind of by accident.
Mhm.
Like, I was posting like some behind the scenes of photo shoots, things like that, getting ready, makeup stuff like that. And just kind of went viral several times, and people were like super excited. And I was talking about how, you know, with Asian representation, like you don't have to be the stereotypical like small petite person.
Mhm.
Like there is so many more options out there for you. You're Our biggest limit now is just ourselves,
Mhm.
not believing in ourselves. And so really just putting that inspiration out there for people to understand that the biggest block we have now is truly like our own inner work that we have to get through.
Mhm.
And from there, I just really grew. And like I said, it happened by accident. And I love being able to create content that not only like helps people understand how to do like makeup or hair, things like that, but like gives them diversity and like representation. Because in the beauty industry, even though things have changed so much, much more than they used to be, there still is so much of the same
Hmm.
representation, especially when it comes to like the higher we get up in certain things. We start to see the same looking style. Like obviously, we start to see less people of color.
Yes.
So just trying to break that up and bring in that representation is really important.
Thank you for sharing that. That is so remarkable how you took that time to do inner reflection and then you decided to go after what it is that you desire and your
Yeah.
passions and your dreams. And you said that started during the pandemic. So that wasn't that long ago.
No. Yeah, I started like I guess influencing like I think 2021 or 2022.
You're
Yeah.
really a natural. So clearly the stars align for you. And so for those of you who are watching the video version, Jjanga is wearing a traditional hanbok, which is gorgeous. And the video that I found of you was after October 7th, your
Mhm.
Free Palestine video of you sharing your own ancestral lineages of being half Korean and half Irish to, I guess, cultures that have been colonized many,
Yes.
many years. And so, how was your own understanding of your background and your ancestry? Like, how does that inform you of your influencing and your activism?
So I think it's always important, like my mom and I talk a lot about this, but I think it's so important to make sure that we don't forget history. Because forgetting history means that you are not acknowledging your ancestors anymore. And our ancestors have gone through so much for us to be where we are now. And to just show up and be like grateful for that is more than we even realize. But then to actually try to actively like make changes that our ancestors would have partaked in, I think is what really aligns with me, but I think is what we really should be focusing more towards. And so like learning more about um like the oppression that the Korean people have and Irish people have gone through have has really, I guess, fueled me as a person to make sure that that history isn't forgotten. And as we've seen throughout all of this, the Irish people have been incredibly supportive and vocal and not back down once. And I think that's incredibly important too for us to not only focus on, but to inspire more with. And as we know, the South Korean people are very supportive as well. Unfortunately, the government suppresses the amount of protests that get out
Mhm.
onto social media, which is unfortunate, but we have to also understand that South Korea is still occupied, and the government is not of their own. My mom and I actually just talked a lot about the government because she's in Korea and she's unfortunately very disappointed in it. And the thing that's so crazy is I randomly brought up the April 3rd massacre to my mother. And her and I haven't like kind of talked about it, but never really fully depthly, like in depth talked about it. And she really didn't even know that much. I actually knew more about it than she did. And she told me in the textbooks growing up, it was never in the books.
Mhm.
And it triggered me to realize that the laws that the US is passing right now to make sure that the Israel occupation is in good light is the exact thing that the US did to Korea, is
Mhm.
to make sure, and the same with the Japanese occupation, is to make sure that the history is changed in their favor. And growing up too in the US, like the history books never mentioned any, like the Korean War is like one small paragraph
Yeah.
in the entire book.
Yeah.
And they never mention what they did.
Mhm.
And it reminds me of the fact that, if we continue to allow this to keep happening and for them to keep changing this perception of what history actually happened, then we're never going to learn. And so we're going to continue to be in the same cycle. And it's the same as like a karmic cycle.
Mhm.
Like in this world, we're constantly going through this until we can break it.
Mhm.
It's going to be the same thing with history. Until we finally break that cycle, we're going to constantly be in this snake eating its tail
Mhm.
loop. And I think it's so important, not just for myself, but the future generations to understand that this is what happened and this is what we should do to stop it from happening again.
Yeah. And so you grew this huge platform on TikTok and Instagram from 2021. You're like influencing and you're getting brand deals. And then this happens.
Yeah.
And you've made several videos where you've like shared your feelings about, were you scared to be so outspoken? Because Palestine was a it still is
It is.
polarized topic. It still is. And so, what were you thinking about before you started sharing so openly? And where are you now with that?
So I'll be honest, when I first spoke about it, the first thing I did, I didn't think about at all. Because I didn't know that it was such a polarizing topic. I
Mhm.
really didn't. I just thought this is just like how, I was for, like Ukraine or really anybody, like these kind of like for Black Lives Matter, like I just you don't think about it. You want to support, So like I posted that and immediately I had people message me and they're like, "Did you know? Did you know?" And I was like, "What are we talking about? Like this like what? Like I'm so confused." And even my mother didn't understand the whole what was happening because the Israel embassy in Korea makes a lot of propaganda. So my mother was still also ill-informed. But it wasn't until like I was doing more and I was like, why is everyone not wanting to talk about this? It made me want to know more, like similar to how so many books are banned in like 1984.
Mhm.
Um, Things like that. Like the more you can't have it, the more I want to know. And so
Yeah.
I was like fueled by that. Also, my daughter is half Jewish.
Mhm.
So her father is of Jewish ancestry in Russia, and her grandfather survived the Holocaust. So I remember being educated somewhat on that topic, but like um, my like Jewish friends and family actually educated me way more on Israel than anyone else did. They
Mhm.
were like really like, "Oh my God, are you ready for this?" I was
Yeah.
like, "What?"
You just
And
opened
they're
a
like,
can
"You
of
need
worms.
to really listen because this is the reason why the majority of actual Jewish people, well, not actual Jewish people, but Jewish people are not supportive of Israel." You
Mhm.
know, and learning about the Haravira agreement and things like that, I was just like, "Whoa, what's happening?" So then it felt like for me, I couldn't stay silent. I knew the risk and
Mhm.
it sucks.
Yeah.
Like that risk stuff sucks, but at the same time, it's like that risk over, I know that if I don't speak out, I am just like everyone else who is silent. But my biggest goal is at the end of the day to not be a slave for a corporation,
Mhm.
and to speak for humanity and to never put dollars over people.
Yes.
And so that was where I was like, okay, I know I'm going to be losing, especially because it was the holidays. I had a lot of contracts signed up
Mhm.
and I had wanted to take the family on a vacation and all of these things, which is fine. Like there's so much more time. I know that I'm blessed to have safety. Um, and money, things like that, it always comes around. So I decided to take that sacrifice. And once you start, it's not that hard. I think it's the initial like do it and speak on it, and then like it's asking for a ceasefire is the literal bare minimum.
Mhm.
Educating yourself on the topic is should be the bare minimum as well. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are too lazy and too afraid because they've lived in their comforts and they don't want to become uncomfortable in their own lives to sacrifice what could potentially help another person. I think it's very much the same idea of um, I'm trying to gather analogy, but like when typical people see homeless people, they say that's their problem, not mine, so
Right.
I'm not going to help them. It's very much the same as that's another person's problem, not mine. They will find excuses of why they wouldn't want to help somebody to better their choice, like their to make themselves feel better about their choices.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of the times, a lot of people are like, well, it's too complicated, but it's really not because it's actually less complicated than the conflict with Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
So, um, people were really ready to jump on that.
Mhm,
Um, but not only did I lose a lot of brand deals, but I separated from all of my agencies.
mhm,
So one of the agencies I separated just because I decided finally I'm just done with the modeling world right now.
mhm.
I am done because every single model, and I can't even think of one model, but every single model chose to stay silent,
Mhm.
knowing how much they are in demand, except for Bella Hadid and Gigi Hadid. Those two, I think we all knew we're going to end up speaking up. They've always been speaking up, but and they've lost deals as well. But so many models are in so much demand that there's just no way they would lose their platform. Like Ashley Graham, someone I really, really, really looked up to, has chosen not only to stay silent, but also to take on work with brands that are actively supporting Israel.
Yeah.
And that was a huge shocker for me and disappointment. So I decided to take a step back and really reevaluate what I want with myself. And I think this not only did speaking out about Palestine, ignite something in who I am, but it made me really, once again, kind of like my shift during the pandemic, stop and really think about what do I want?
Mhm.
What do I want to continue doing? And like, am I happy?
Yeah.
And I realized too in the modeling industry, I had gotten to the point where I was incredibly unhappy too, because they just don't pay well.
Mhm.
During the pandemic, it paid really well because people they kind of needed more people.
Right.
But after pandemic, rates were dropped by at least 75%. So I would be being paid like a fraction of what an influencing job would pay me.
Mhm.
Um, but I digress. Either way,
Yeah.
these are sacrifices that I'm comfortable making, and I think I know I would do again. And I made those videos to, if anything, inspire another person to not be afraid of
Mhm.
losing something, because what's meant for you is always going to find you, and if it wasn't, it's going to find its way out, and that was what its way out for me.
Yeah. Ooh, I mean, you definitely like you sharing that video so early in October. I found you, and then like other creators who are on the same page, like we all care about humanity, which is so wild that that's a thing,
Yeah, like it
right?
should be a given, because like this is the funny part too. I feel like I don't understand why I need to explain it, but it's
Right.
like if you can't care about humanity, that means you care nothing about the following you have,
Mhm.
because within your following, there's got to be at least a small percentage of Palestinian people who have followed you even before October 7th, you
Mhm.
know? So if you can't even respect those people following you, who's to say you wouldn't do that to the rest of the people who are following you?
Right.
And I just don't understand that you would have this huge platform in which people have built for you. You didn't build it, you're just yourself. Other people. This is a community,
Right.
Unless you've bought those followers, like those are people who choose to follow you.
Mhm.
Um, and to choose to ignore them is insane to me, because that just means to me that it's more of your show than anything else.
Right.
It's all about me and nobody else
Mhm.
type of content. And that is one of the big things to why I started unfollowing so many people, is realizing it
Same.
was only ever about them, and
Same.
that's it.
Yeah. I unfollowed Selena Gomez
Oh,
because and like come on girl, what is she, UNICEF, head of
oh
UNICEF
yeah, she's a
ambassador?
UNICEF ambassador. She
And
hates me.
but I know this is why I want to bring her up, because like homegirl got the entire world to troll Hailey Bieber from those
Oh
eyebrow
yeah.
videos, and then for her to like, yeah, so I want you to talk about this, but what made me realize this was that she has 400 and something million that's more than the US population, by the way,
Yeah.
and she's probably a billionaire, and homegirl cannot call for a ceasefire. Like, then what is power? Then what is the
Right.
money for? If you just stopped working today, she would be good. Like, she
Yeah,
would still have more than enough money to live her life
absolutely.
wherever she wants. But if you can't call for a ceasefire, and
Right.
people like us are literally not only calling us for a ceasefire, but we're calling for an end of an occupation and lose
Right.
jobs over it, then like who has the power here?
Exactly.
So anyway, talk about your rare beauty.
So, this is a funny fact about mine, but one thing I wanted to do when I was first started college was research.
Mhm.
I love researching. You give me something to dig, and I will dig hard.
Same.
And so when they made that post, I like genuinely went in with like hope.
Mhm.
Okay, but then I started reading, and I was like, I've seen the name before. I'm trying to remember. It was the David. I don't know why my brain is
It was the CEO of Rare Beauty, right?
yes.
Yes.
So one of the my video went viral, and then Rare Beauty had it removed.
Mhm.
Um, so I called them out because one of the donations they were donating to, or one of the foundations they were donating to, I ended up finding out after digging, not only followed the IDF, but is an Israel-owned EMT,
Mhm.
which works directly with the IDF and doesn't help Palestinians because there's been multiple reports of Palestinian people asking for help from them and them completely ignoring it. So I called her out because she used the humanitarian crisis in
Mhm.
Gaza as PR because not only was she staying silent, but she had to save face and didn't want to get boycotted because people were starting to boycott her.
Mhm.
And I called her out because it's like you're not only going to use this to help you make more money, but you're also donating that money to the oppressor. And it's like
Yeah.
how dumb
Yeah.
must you think we are? It's like, and they also were like, well, we're also donating to PCRF, but it's like you're not giving a percentage of how much is being donated. So you, for all we know, 1% could go to PCRF, and you're not lying, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So it's just so non-transparent. And it's like, how can you choose to donate to the oppressed and the oppressor all at once? It's like saying, like I'm someone, like a woman is getting like beaten by her husband, and it's like, well, I'll help you, but then let me help him too.
Mhm.
Like that, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like that. So I called him out, and obviously she hates me now because it went viral. She blocked me.
Wow, that's an honor. But this was after, but okay, so she made this like post, right? And she wasn't calling for a ceasefire. And then
Yeah.
made another post saying she was going to delete her Instagram for her mental health. And
Oh my God, yes.
that's when people lost their shit. And then
Yes.
as a response to that, she made that like video about we're donating from Rare Beauty. And that's when you did the digging. And
Yeah.
you were like, wait a minute. And then everyone was like, wait a minute.
I know. And now they hate me. And like, oh my God. It was so funny too because I was like, I talked to my social media manager at the time too. I was like, hey, just so you know, I don't think we're ever gonna be working with Rare Beauty. And I had talked to like a few of my friends who modeled for them, and they're like, dude, they don't even want to pay like anything for an
Yeah,
entire day. And they don't pay influencers either. So I was just like, I didn't lose anything. Like
anything.
not only did I like call them out, but I'm not losing anything because like I'm sick and tired of brands like Rare Beauty and other ones, many large beauty brands basically creating their success off the back of free work
Mhm.
from especially people of color,
Yes.
or using, in Rare Beauty's case, mental health,
Mhm.
and I'm really tired of that kind of stuff. It's just like, why do you need to capitalize off of something that makes people more vulnerable
Mhm.
when you're not actually doing much to help for it? You're just naming uh, blushes the color of feelings, essentially,
Right.
and calling it a
Well,
day.
it's like what you said. The only reason why she has that following is because of us. The
Yeah.
only reason why Netflix and Spotify have their millions of streams is from content written by writers and artists.
Yes.
And TikTok and Instagram is powered by our content. So it's like, why aren't we getting compensated for that?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
I wanted you on mostly because like I just really admired your, and I didn't know, I didn't remember that story about you dancing, but like a lot of people want to quit their corporate jobs because they don't want to work for the man. They want to like get out of capitalism. And so they want to become an entrepreneur. But the way into entrepreneurship nowadays is through social media and having a huge presence. But now it seems like we're shifting a little bit to where there is a component of activism. And so, like, where is the responsibility, you think, in having a social media presence, and like when is it the time to be active and call out these atrocities? I know what your answer is going to be. You're going to say like it's everyone's responsibility, but I oftentimes hear like, especially in the spiritual and wellness communities, like a lot, which has triggered the fuck out of me, the some people saying like that social media is not the place to be
Uh,
active. So like what are your thoughts?
well, my response to that is if someone's going to say social media isn't the place to be active, then why are you on it in the first place? So, as a presence on social media, I think we're talking about a social responsibility. I think the more of an influence that you have, not only do you have that responsibility to your community, but you have the responsibility for yourself to speak on these, like what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to speak on Palestine, but also anything in the future as well, because I know this isn't going to be the end all be all, you
Right.
know. But I find it so funny. Quite often, a lot of people are working so hard for freedom, right? We're all working very hard for freedom. It's like we all in our head have this idea of what freedom's going to be like, and a lot of the times they've sold us that financial freedom is the goal.
Yes.
But it's funny to me quite often that the people who have the most money are silenced by themselves the most. Silenced by
Right.
themselves, not only by the money, but the people are giving them the money. So it's like, is that actual freedom if you have all this money and all this power to not actually be able to use it?
And compromising your values.
Absolutely. And so I find that it is not just my responsibility, but for others to show that, like, there is more than just a financial freedom
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Because a lot of people want to become social media, look towards social media for entrepreneurship, things like that. And it's like, okay, well, what is all of this if you can't even use your own voice? Just
Mm-hmm.
like, go back to Selena Gomez. What's the point of having all of those followers, having all of this money if you just can't even use your own voice?
Right.
Like, imagine having all of that and it's still not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think it's really important to show that side to other people, that there is so much more than I didn't just make it because I made a certain amount. I
Mm-hmm.
made it because I can speak for myself.
Right. Well, I definitely think post October 7th, like the consciousness shifted in some way.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
people are definitely, especially Gen Z, so I went to a Gaza and Sudan benefit last night, and they were
Uh-huh.
all Gen Z. And the benefit was $150 per ticket. So these kids are not buying Starbucks. They're not buying, but they're spending their money for fundraising, and they all wore their kufias. And
I
I was
love
like,
that.
I have I have so much hope in the future.
Oh, I do too. I do too. My children are so receptive to learning too. Like, I mean, as all children are, but I think it's really important to, um, it's funny. Some people are like, "Don't, well, you shouldn't talk to your kids about these types of things. They're too young, blah blah." And I'm like, that's discrediting children. First of all, they're very very smart.
Very
And as a kid myself, I essentially had, I raised myself, so I know kids are smart. And I explained to them, you know, what's happening. And not once have they, like, I mean, my kids were addicted to Starbucks.
mm,
Okay. As someone who used to make a lot of money before I was a social media influencer, I got them addicted to Starbucks because it was like, I worked
bougie.
all night, I made all this money, and I still have to be up all day with the kids. So I was like a Starbucks addict.
Mhm.
So they got addicted to Starbucks and they love the ham and cheese croissant. Okay. Like that was their die hard, like favorite. We drive by and they'd be like, "Can we get one?" And I'd be like, "All right." We haven't had one in over 3 months. And
Yeah.
they never, like, I literally was just to check on them. I was like, oh, look, do you want to go grab a ham and cheese croissant? And they like whipped their heads so hard. And like my son literally rolled his eyes,
Yeah.
you know? So like I have so much faith because they're not willing to live in their comforts to
Mhm.
ignore other people,
Yeah.
you know? And I think we're, this generation of raising the new, our generation, raising like the newer generations too, we're teaching so much empathy.
Mhm.
And I think it's like another thing too is like I was raised not by choice, my mother's choice, but a lot of my friends and stuff like that agree is like we were latchkey kids.
Mhm.
We had parents who may have physically been there, but they were never emotionally there. Um, there just wasn't a lot of connection. There
Mhm.
was just physical bodies.
Right.
Whereas like now we have that connection. We're teaching them empathy at such a young age that
Mhm.
they're able to understand it,
Mhm.
um, and not have to be explained how to understand it. And I think that is going to make a huge difference and what is going to end up being the leading factor of why these younger generations are changing so much more too, is that not only do they stand on all 10 toes
Mhm.
for what they believe in, but they're willing to like sacrifice. And I think it's a huge thing is we're getting more away from the individualism,
Yes.
because individualism, a lot of people like, we've been raised so long on individualism, is that we weren't willing to sacrifice,
Mhm.
um, because we were like, well, I worked way too hard to get here. Why
Mhm.
should I have to sacrifice everything to help someone else? They didn't work as hard as me. But it's like, until that person has the same amount of opportunities as you do, you're never going to get any further.
Yeah.
You're going to be yourself stuck in that same loop of working way too hard for where you're at.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's just a really, really, he's
Yeah.
pissing off. Oh,
We have a Jjanga has a co-host here.
yeah,
Her
he's
babe, her baby.
blush on.
Hi.
He loved to play with my makeup right
Oh.
there. Aww.
So you started a website.
I
Mother,
did.
mother, is it, how do you pronounce it?
Mother Earth.
Mother
Yeah, I
Earth.
just put the A in
I
front.
love it. And you
Yeah.
share about like watermelon approved makeup, which if you don't know what
Yes.
that means, it just means free Palestine. And
Yes.
just like it's kind of like a blog and lifestyle and beauty. And so what's next for you? Like, where do you see, obviously there was a shift because you were always an activist, but it was more about like body positivity and
Right.
being like a Korean, kind of dispelling these like Korean tropes, right?
Right.
And now, like, where are you going to go with this?
That, you know what? I'm still unclear of where my future lies. I decided this year I'm just really gonna let it just kind of flow. I'm not gonna I didn't set goals. I set intentions.
Mhm.
Because you know, I want to give more power to the universe
Mhm.
and what is going to happen in my life instead of trying to feel like I need to control everything. So one thing I started Mother Earth mainly because I don't trust the social media platforms anymore, and I
Yeah.
was so sick and tired of all of the censorship.
Yeah.
Um, so I figured I would create a website that they can't censor, because it's my own, and I've paid for like the rights and everything. Um, I created those lists because like when we were all starting to boycott, there was so much don't buy this, don't buy that, don't buy that, but there wasn't like where can I buy from?
Mhm.
So I wanted to make it easy. It was like my labor of love. I had all this time because I wasn't working as an influencer. I had lots of these deals. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to utilize this time and work on something that's productive. And then like also gives to the community something that will not fade out. Like this is something that can always be a good resource.
Mhm.
So I worked on that, and I'm really happy about it. I it gets so much traffic, but like that makes me happy because I know people are using it, which makes me happy. But
And it's
I
called ghost potting, which I love.
yeah. um And I wanted to start a blog too, because I feel like that's honestly where a lot of the influencer world is going to head.
Mhm.
I do think a lot of things have been shifting away from TikTok and Instagram.
Mhm.
So I know that this year I want to start doing YouTube.
Mhm.
I've only ever done like YouTube Shorts, but I want to actually start doing more talking and showing more of who I am to the world, which sometimes sounds terrifying. But like I think I'm finally ready. I was always very much a reserved type of person on who I am for a very long time. So let's not take out every wipe. He loves taking wipes out. Um but yeah, like that's really all I have for the year is like some ideas of what I want to do, but I also want the universe to kind of take control of what's going on. So all I know is I can keep showing up for myself and keep showing up for the people in Palestine as well as in Congo, and Sudan, and trying to educate on much that I can, and setting my intentions with what I'm doing too, not just creating just to create. I think that's another thing that's shifted in me is like I was just creating to like create and I didn't really put much thought into it. And now I'm like, I really am thinking long and hard about what I post before I post and
Mhm.
like what impact will it leave, and what am I doing, you
Mhm.
know? Um, yeah, I it's kind of like a unforeseen thing for me.
Yeah, I love that. I think
I
a lot of people I've been talking to have said the same thing. They're really divesting from this idea of goals and like these lists, and they're just kind of going with an intention of I want to just see what happens and being a little on the unknown. And I think everything that's happened since the pandemic has primed us for that. Like we don't
right.
plan, but we really don't know. And I was talking to my friend last night, and she's like, when are things going to go back to normal? And I'm like, we left normal in 2020.
Yeah,
like, I'm like, we're just so much more aware and
yeah,
awakened. Like once you see something, you can't go back. So there's no normal anymore. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we're like communing with aliens next year, you know?
yeah. Oh, and I wouldn't be surprised like at all if by the summer, like they were here,
Yeah, or they fly
like
by and they're like, never mind.
yeah. We're like, please take me. I'm so ready to leave this earth. Please.
I
Oh,
know, he agrees. Was there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share?
um, trying to think. Oh, I'm trying to think. You know, um, my lupus makes my brain get so like foggy.
Mhm.
Uh, I see a rheumatologist soon to talk about medication, but yeah, I think that is one thing I want to do a little bit more this year is to talk about my lupus.
Mhm.
Um, it's Korean culture. It's like I feel like I'm always talking about getting away from all these negative things of Korean culture and like, really changing things up. But I do live by the one thing of not talking much about some of my struggles and things like that because it's like my mom didn't either because it's like you don't want to be a victim,
Mhm.
like you associate it with being a victim when in reality it's you're not a victim, it's just your story. And I think I struggle a lot with talking about my autoimmune disease,
Mhm.
and what it has, how it's affected me, things like that. And I think that's one thing this year I do want to talk a little bit more about, because another thing that kind of triggered me too is I know Selena Gomez has lupus as well,
That's
but
right.
it really sucks for people to use that. Like all her following, I saw so many comments. They're like, "Well, she has lupus. Give her a break." Blah blah. I'm like, I have lupus. That doesn't make me a shitty person. Like lupus doesn't make me a terrible person. It doesn't make me a person without morals. Does
Right.
it make my memory like
Mhm.
crap? Yes. Like, sometimes I struggle like lupus affects a lot of psychosocial things too with my brain, when managing some emotions,
Mhm.
but like it's not something that's not manageable, and it doesn't make me do the things that would, like, actions like that shouldn't be blamed on lupus. And I think that's such a, like, I hate seeing that type of stuff because it's like, let's not use it as a crutch.
Yeah.
It's not a crutch, like, yes, it sucks. And if I, I'm aware that I'm making an action that is based off of something my lupus may be triggering, I will apologize and own up to it. But I'm
Right.
not going to use it as a crutch.
Right.
Um, and that's something I think this year I really want to talk a little bit more about is how I'm living with lupus.
Yes, please do, because I know you shared in a couple of our DMs like your flare-ups and stuff and
Yeah.
how that affects your content creation. So I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's an interesting year. This is a year too that so my father had MS,
Mhm.
and it's another thing for me. It's like I've been getting some symptoms potentially of MS as well. So I have uh, I'm seeing a neuro I'm not sure what the word is, but like basically I have to get a CT scan of and stuff like that of my brain as well to make sure I don't have lesions, and potentially have MS as well, which is I'm like, yay, because like they've said that I could potentially, just because of some of my symptoms that I'm having, but I like to just think that maybe it's just because I'm getting older. Like, maybe it's just because I'm getting older. Let's just blame it on that, and maybe all the years of
Yeah.
dancing and like 10-inch heels.
Yeah. Or having to witness multiple genocides and
Yeah,
like
like all of these things.
capitalism.
Maybe it's just that,
Yeah.
like I like to just, I like to I will deflect medical things as long as I
Yes.
can. Even the lupus thing, it took me a long time to finally seek out getting diagnosed, even though I had a feeling,
Mhm.
because a lot of what I was feeling was aligning with it, and I have a friend who has it as well, but I didn't want to be diagnosed.
Mhm.
But it took me a long time to finally get the blood work and things needed to
Yeah.
get the diagnosis. And yeah, I think it's something that this year I think it's gonna trying to open up more. That's my thing. Open
Yeah.
up more.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I had such a great conversation with you. Thank you, Jjanga.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, thank you, La.